Hello and welcome. I'm Danette Kubanda, and joining me today for a very special Skype interview is Chris Bird. He is a former commissioned officer in the Royal Military Police of the British Army. He is a former crime reporter for both Texas and Canada, and he's also the author of Surviving a Mass Killer Rampage. When seconds count, police are still minutes away. Thank you so much for being here, Chris.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Danette.
So, Chris, we live in a world that can be very scary. We're hearing about mass shootings all the time, and it's really important for people to learn how to stay safe. What do criminals look for in a victim?
Basically, they're looking for an easy victim, somebody who isn't paying attention. They'll pick on old people and maybe young people, but particularly they will pick on people who are not paying attention to what's going on around them. So situational awareness becomes very important. And you need, when you're out in public, to keep your eyes open and your ears open and make sure that you are never surprised.
I love that term, situational awareness. How do cell phones play into that?
Cell phones are a two-edged sword. They're very useful for calling 911 after the incident is over, but you have to realize that you can't depend on police to save you because they have a response time. And it may be minutes in a big city, or it may be half an hour in a rural area. So you don't want to be oblivious to what's going on around you while you're talking or texting on your cell phone. We had a woman here in San Antonio some years ago. She was talking on her cell phone. She walked off the curb into a bus, and it killed her.
Wow. So many eye-opening pieces of information there. It really is important that we don't try to depend on the police. They're still minutes away. So do you feel like we always have to be on high alert?
There are various stages of alert. Yes, while you're out in public, you should be alert in terms of keeping your eyes open, keeping your ears open, analyzing what you see, but you don't have to be paranoid. Okay. When you see a problem, then your level of attention escalates, and you need to make sure that you stay safe, and so does any family member who happens to be with you.
What about in gun-free zones? Are we free to be safe there?
Gun-free zones are a myth that make gun controllers feel better. They do absolutely nothing. In fact, they're worse than useless because these bad guys, the mass killers, they may be nuts or they may be terrorists, but they're not stupid. And they almost always pick, quote, gun-free zones to carry out their depredations.
Wow, that's an eye-opener. What would you say we can do then? How can we fight back?
The current mantra, even for federal law enforcement agencies, the advice given to ordinary citizens is run, hide, fight. And that's good advice, but it needs a little explanation. The run part is fairly obvious. If you can evacuate, if you can get out of there, then that is probably the best solution for most people. If you can hear shooting happening, run and take as many people with you as you can. If you're not in a position where you can run, you may want to try and hide. However, the problem with that is where you hide. When the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, that shooting was happening, a lot of people went into the bathroom. The bathroom had one door, the entrance and exit. And they went in there. The killer followed them in and started shooting them down because they had nowhere to go. They were trapped. Fight is your last resort if you're unarmed. It may be something you choose to do if you're well trained and you've got a gun. But otherwise, it's a question of making sure that you stay as safe as you can. And one of the ways to do that is to start throwing things at the guy's head. And immediately his arms will come up to protect his head and his face. If you are throwing, whether it's a laptop computer, a pocket change even, if you're throwing things at him, it gives you a chance to charge, to close with him. And ideally, if you're with a group of people, if you lead the charge, they will follow. And then they can overcome it by sheer numbers. And remember that more ordinary civilians have brought mass killings to an end than law enforcement officers have, because they're the ones on the scene. In a way, they're the first responders.
Wow, that's true. That's a very eye-opening way of thinking about it. Thank you so much for sharing all this great information, Chris. Remember, run, hide, fight. To learn more about Chris, his book, Surviving a Mass Killer Rampage, When Seconds Count, Police Are Still Minutes Away. Great subtitle. Very, very eye-opening. To learn more about anything else Chris is working on, visit his website at privateerpublications.com. Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure, Danette.